You can either take the red pill, you'll wake up, everything was a dream, or you can take the black pill, you can get torched.
Well, I suppose getting torched won't hurt that much. I don't feel anything.
Wait for it.
Oh, wait. I just got a new client. Get torched! Get torched! Get torched!
I'm Wayne Carey, and this is The Truth Hurts.
Well, here we are again for another episode of The Truth Hurts. I'm Ayrton Woolley alongside the King, Wayne Carey. Duck, I'm feeling a fair bit better myself this week, but I'm looking over at you in a bit of discomfort. So, how you going?
Well, I've just offered you some anti-inflams because I have popped about 5 of them. I've put a rib out, Anton, to be short.
How do you do that?
Well, I don't know.
Were you wrestling someone, or you?
No. I've had a pretty good weekend. I started off on Friday. I was at a Penfolds Wine Lunch, which with George Samios. Have you ever listened to him?
I have. Yep, this regular on radio.
Yes, he does the regular radio spot, and that's where things. And it was during COVID that he did that with Carey and Tim. I think it was, and I think he still does it. But tell you what, and I'm not a massive. Well, yes, I am, but I don't mind a drink of wine, but I'm not a connoisseur. So I've gone to a few of these different wine events with George. He just captivates you. I never thought I'd listen to a guy talking about wine where you just sit there and you can't take your eyes or ears from listening. It's just incredible.
He's got a great passion, doesn't he, for it?
Great passion, gives you a history lesson while you're doing it. So you learn some other stuff about our great country, our different states, how wine got here, just all these different, and then depending on the room, for instance, if he's in Melbourne, he's talking about AFL, so he talks about your taste buds and how, straight up the spine, and you've got, the centre forward and your full back of you, all of this sort of stuff. And then when he's talking rugby, he reverts to that. He's just brilliant. And every time I've listened to him, he changes it up. So that's how my Friday started. And
how it ended with what, 3 bottles of?
I'll tell you what it ended with. I then called it a night because I've matured. So I called it a night early enough, and it was about 6 or 7 o'clock. And then all of a sudden I start getting all these alerts on my phone. And I thought, what have I done now? I thought, hang on, where have you been? Nah, couldn't have been. I knew I couldn't have been anything wrong. Haven't done anything wrong.
Nothing that's happened recently.
No, exactly. So I just thought, I'm all good. But getting all these alerts, mate, ring me back, but you can't. And then there's a headline that hits the Herald Sun again. The fascination is just incredible. I can't believe it. But they've said that I've got an exquisite package. Now, for once, they got it right.
You've leaked this. You've called them up and...
Oh, don't worry. I've had some mates that have accused me of that. But, obviously I had a conversation with Jess after this had all come out, and we're talking about, how does something like this, and then, the first thing that
your partner, Jess, and the mother of your...
And then the first thing that was said was, I know that's not exactly accurate. So who was actually said? So then you start getting, people that are being, a little bit mean and nasty, and I'm talking friends, and they're saying, you're kidding yourself and blah, blah, blah. This makes up for all the bad headlines. And I said, all the bad headlines? Well, most of them have made up or exaggerated. And this one, without being facetious as I was before, saying they were correct. And I did tweet it out on the Saturday to say that, about time the Herald Sun got it right. Well, once again, they got it wrong, because what a load of crap, exquisite package. I'm above average, but I wouldn't say it's exquisite. You've got nothing to say?
What can I say when I look at that smirk on your face over there?
Because, just another headline that one my children and my elder children don't want to read about their dad. And like I said, just, how do they make this stuff up? And then all that it is a rehashing of old news and rehashing of old relationships or what they considered to be relationships and everything else. And they just go back and
so there's
crapper.
obviously a reason for that for the Herald Sun, and I noticed that you used the photo with you throwing the jacket behind your shoulder and your buttons done up down past your belly button. So that was for the full Monty, that photo, wasn't it? They've done that. They've done that because you must just be clickbait heaven for the Herald Sun. People must just be clicking on these articles non-stop.
Why?
People
cares?
There must be enough people that care. They wouldn't bother writing them again if people weren't clicking on them. So maybe it's all your mates going back to the article.
Like I said, when you get into the nuts and bolts of it, get that?
Yeah, no, good stuff, mate.
No, but it's just, you know what it does? Like I said, I've spent the whole weekend now then answering questions about, this and even walking around the local footy yesterday. I took Carter, beautiful day, went and watched my mate's son play in a grand final, under 16. They got up and won. So well done to Jimmy for winning his grand final. But, you're walking around the crowd and, me being insecure and shy, like I am, I'm walking around at local footy. There's Carter running around. He's got his little Sharon footy. You know what footy I got him, by the way? You know the little footy that Podsy Adley and Sloane came out with?
I haven't seen that, no.
They paint the face on the footy and it says point the nose, kick the chin, hold the ears.
Okay.
Very
Works
clever.
well, you reckon?
Very clever. Well, it's helped me with Carter. So anyway, he's walking around, the footy, and I can just you just see the Snickers and I don't mean what you eat, the Snicker bars in there.
Oh, yes.
You can just see people snickering and going, oh, yeah, and they're not looking at my eyes anymore. So it's all these little things that just occurred yesterday, and I felt very insecure. And ended up.
You weren't worried for a second.
I ended up tying a jumper around my waist, and I was walking around the ground. Went to the playground, did that, and then just had to leave a little bit earlier than what I normally would.
I don't think you've ever been self-conscious in your life, have you?
Well, it would surprise you. Don't you remember when I spoke about the self-confidence and feeling insecure and putting that wall on the mask? And
yeah, not after someone's written something about an exquisite package. But anyway, let's talk about the exquisite package. It wasn't. I wouldn't say the footy was exquisite on the weekend, but it was a package of games. First round of finals. Lots to talk about. Lots of controversy out of the weekend. We might as well go off the top with Brayden Maynard because that's yet to be resolved. It'll happen.
I'll tell you the one thing that really annoys me, other than, headlines that aren't near true. And that is and I know everyone's paid. I was in that industry and everyone's paid to have an opinion. But what really irks me is those that have an opinion. And we know, look, the same suspects, and I've spoken about Kane a lot because he does have a lot of opinions, and I've said before that some of them I agree with, some of them I don't. But then to do the complete opposite to what you've always done and come out and defend Brayden Maynard like he's just done absolutely nothing wrong other than knock someone clean out. And then Nathan Buckley, ex-coach of obviously Collingwood and Collingwood man through and through, to come out and defend, Maynard. So I can't see sitting now outside of mainstream media how they could be so definite about what they thought Maynard did, both being unbelievably experienced football people and both played a lot of footy. They know as well as anyone that you can change your mind when you're in midair. You're a professional athlete, for Christ's sake. You jump up and you can control your body. You can twist your body. You can, and these footballers are highly trained athletes, so they can make decisions very, very quickly.
So I've been torn myself about this. You're saying that Brayden Maynard here.
I'm torn when I hear people be so definitive one way, because that you cannot be definitive one way on this. You actually can't. No one can answer what truly happened other than Maynard himself. All right. What I can answer as an ex-professional athlete is jumping off the ground and twisting my body and being able to, and then being able to hurt someone in a split second. I can definitively say I could do that. Me,
Yep.
as an ex-professional athlete, right? I know that I could do that. So could Maynard do that? Yes, he could. Did he deliberately do it? Only he can answer that. So don't sit there and be so absolute one way and then get on your high horse to win back friends. I'm not saying Bucks is trying, but, to go purely on the players' side of it, which, Corns and others are, purely to get votes off the general public, because we're talking about our game and the roughness of our game and it, becoming soft and all this. So I get all of that. Do I want Maynard to be rubbed out for this? No. Definitely not. I don't. Does he have a case to answer and should have been sent to the tribunal to answer a case? Yes, because I think everyone needs to know, and I think we all want to hear what Brayden says and what was going through his mind. Yeah.
So he's obviously going to defend himself. I guess that's
Correct.
So there's layers to this. So the start of it is the conversation around football actions, and so the smother is supposedly a football action. The problem that I have with that is that a tackle is also a football action, or a bump is also a football action if you get it right. Well, he didn't get it. He didn't necessarily get it right, did he? I think this is where there's maybe a failure in the system, in that I don't think it's worth 3 weeks, but it can be nothing, or it's got to be 3 weeks plus because Brayshaw was knocked out. So let's say we take all of that away and you are in charge of this whole process. You don't have guidelines to follow. You're making a judgment on what Maynard deserves on his duty of care and so on. Would you give him 1 week if you could?
The problem with our system, and it's been the problem for a long time, is that precedence doesn't get used. The inconsistency is profound, and it has been for a long time. And that's why everyone's arguing about this, because no one knows where it's going to go because of the inconsistencies in our game and what's called, as you said, a football action, not a football action, all of these things. But invariably someone's been knocked out and may miss a grand final themselves, right? Once again, I want to reiterate, I don't want Maynard to get rubbed. I don't want him to miss a grand final. So what is the right result out of this?
Well, do you think he has a duty of care?
I think out of the fact that if once again, so not being definitive and not knowing exactly, and once again, there's only one person on this earth that knows what he was trying to do, and that's Brayden Maynard. All of us are just guessing, right? We are. Now, the other argument is, does Brayshaw, should it be upon him to, at least when he gets rid of that ball and he knows Maynard's coming, because your vision says he's coming, you've just kicked it straight over his hands. Does he have a duty of care to protect himself and at least turn? And did he have time to turn? All of these different things are questions that are going to be asked at the tribunal. I just, because it's in that action, because we don't know, but because someone's got knocked out, I'm prepared to say he should get a week. All right? And that means he misses a prelim, but if they get through, he gets to play in a grand final. Because invariably at the end of the day, is that fair? Is that reasonable? People will go, oh, well, it's either nothing or it's 3 weeks, it's this or that. Well, you know what? Unlike everyone else out there, I'm going to sit right on that picket fence and say, well, he has knocked someone out. So if it was completely an accident, which is what he will say, and he was protecting himself, well, unfortunately, sometimes even accidents, when you make a mistake like that in an accident, then it still maybe deserves a week. So that's why I'm landing at a week. And a prelim, to me, missing a prelim is probably like 3.
Yeah, it's significant, isn't it? I guess that's the other part of the argument. We have this discussion in racing when you talk about bans in a spring carnival. Jockeys can lose hundreds of thousands of dollars of income for just that 1 month period. That's their grand final.
Correct. So if a prelim is, a 3 week ban in the home and away, then I think that's fair. I wouldn't like, and I wouldn't like him. I definitely wouldn't like him to miss a grand final. And I'm only saying the 1 week because I think there's just so much grey here that nobody, and not even the tribunal, they're going to sit here and have the same conversation we are now.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what they're not going to do. They're not going to be. None of them are going to come out there being absolutely. There will be argument there, and there'll be one person saying that, one person saying that, and it's unfortunately it is grey, but he has knocked someone out. So there has to be some sort of penalty on that, and I'm happy for it to be 1 week. And people will be critical of that, but I don't give a crap.
It's obviously magnified because it's finals time. Also, too, because Michael Christian is the match review officer.
Yep.
He makes these decisions.
No point of him being an officer anymore. And I love Chriso, but I'm not sure does Chriso even want the job?
I think he's enjoyed it at times, but it's this. There's been
shocking job. It's a shocking job.
You cop a lot of criticism. You're not hiding to nothing.
Yeah, but
because
he's a puppeteer for the people above him anyway.
Well, some might argue that in this situation. So Laura Kane is the new general manager of football. She has sort of been acting in that role.
But he's been overridden so many times.
Steve Hocking has done it in the past.
He's just there's no doubt that he gets phone calls down to say, you've got to do this, you've got to do that over the years. And once again, Chriso's a ripper. And out of anyone that sort of I know outside of, close, I think he's handled it really well, but I think his job now is defunct.
Oh, is it good?
Is that a right word?
That's a word. He's a good man, Chris. I worked with him at 927. He's one of those guys where he'll be very measured, say like in this scenario, and then if you cross him, you've never seen a bloke.
Really?
He will stand up and
he was very robotic when I played on him, or he played on me. And I know I say that to him, by the way. He probably should have won a Brownlow for standing on the mark.
Now,
no, Chriso's a ripper.
Now it's the final part of this is last night. It was almost I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but there was John Platten sat alongside this last night. So the discussion around concussion and so on, and he is there talking about how it's affected his life post football. And that will be the AFL's argument, that we are protecting the players and their futures. How much of that should come into this sort of decision making?
Well, the whole topic and what the reason why our game has gone the way it's gone with the sling tackle and all of the so-called football actions that are no longer football actions and the accidental contact and all of those things are because of what John Platten said. And I think the AFL have been quite clear with where they want to go on this, which is why this is so grey, because at the end of the day, someone has been knocked into next week and not just knocked into next week. He was out, apparently I'm hearing he was out cold for a minute.
Yeah.
Now for a minute to be knocked out is a long time. That's a long time.
And he's obviously got a history, Angus Brayshaw, of concussion too. So we'll watch that space for him. Hopefully he gets up he won't get up for this week, but hopefully if Melbourne gets through.
There's also a little bit of criticism from some, again, about Simon Goodwin being emotional after the game.
Yeah.
Give the bloke a spell. He's the coach of a player that's just gone to hospital.
Yeah.
Of course he's going to be emotional and say things that he doesn't deserve. I could sit down and name every coach, including some of the ones that are softer than others, and they've all been defensive of their players at some point or said something that they shouldn't have said. Like, cut a little bit of slack to defending, especially when it's straight after a game and you're in a press conference, you just lost by a kick, and arguably your best decision maker going inside forward 50, where you've absolutely slaughtered the opposition, and he's got knocked out at the start of the game. Reckon your emotions might be a little bit high. Yeah. So let's rein that in a little bit.
Oh, speaking of Brayshaw, Grant Thomas was one who suggested he contributed to the contact, and you alluded to it there.
That's rhubarb.
Yeah, so that can't be a thing, can it? You've got to be allowed to kick the footy.
It's someone trying to be definitive about something that's not definitive, and that is, and try to stick up for we all try to do, and I'm one of the biggest culprits of it, and I admit it. I'm a player's man. I don't want people to get rubbed out.
Yeah.
I don't like some of the sling tackles this year. In actual fact, 3/4 of them, I've disagreed with the reports on them and the free kick for them. So I'm completely that way, but none of us can be definitive about what we thought Maynard did, including, and I like Grant too, because I like some of his, I like the way he looks at the game.
Yeah.
But I don't think that he contributed to the contact? Could have he protected himself better? Did he have time to do that? I would say with, once again, being a professional athlete, your vision. So part of what Grant says is would have some merit to it, but I don't. But once again, it's just too grey to be definitive about it.
So Melbourne have got some issues. We always say this when it comes to finals time, when the teams that lose their qualifying final, though, you go, oh, how are they going to win next week? But they do have some problems. Given they had 32 more inside 50s in that game, their forward line, their entries were poor, but their forward line didn't look great. Brayshaw out. So they're going to lose Van Rooyen as well to suspension. So what is the answer for Melbourne? My opinion, and this is me, my opinion doesn't mean much, but I'm going to put to you.
It's your opinion, so it's right.
That Christian Petracca, he's a midfield gun, but he has to play more forward. We've seen how it worked when Clayton, pre-Clayton Oliver's injury. Now Clayton's back. Why can't they make that work? Because I look at certain moments, and one thing that Petracca does have is a physical presence around the footy. And there was a moment with Bailey Frisch where Isaac Quaynor was running back with the footy, and
got spoken about a lot.
He could have got him. Tom McDonald looked off the pace.
When they say could have, and I know the commentary around that as well. And yes, he could have. But what if he did get him and then got him and knocked him out, and then we'd all be saying, "Oh, what a stupid act! He's now going to miss a week or whatever for incidental contact."
Not fair.
So and I know this is a physical game, but what's going through Bailey's mind there? Let's not forget we all played the game. So what's going through his mind, given what given what we're going through now with Maynard, he's going, it's that split second decision. Back in the 90s, you wouldn't have been a thought. And I know Luke Hodge made comment on it, and he wouldn't have given it a thought, because guess what? Back then you did it,
and he wouldn't have got suspended.
These days there's still that level of I might get rubbed out.
Yeah. I wonder what would have happened after you floored Dean Rice that day. No, you took the mark, so that's a bit different to a smother. But back to the original question: Melbourne's forward line.
Yeah.
What do you do? Is it Ben Brown? Is it Tom McDonald you persevere with? Do they play smaller? Do they go with Petracca?
It's decision making for me more than
the forwards.
Yeah. And, just the use of the footy's just poor. So.
Is it the way they set up? And you're going to defend Simon Goodwin here, but they do play a bit slow at times, don't they, Melbourne?
Yeah, and that's the last thing forwards want. They don't want slow. You want the ball to get in there with some sort of speed. It's all about angles for me, and obviously kicking the ball to your forwards' advantage, but also knowing when to come into space, out of space, creating space. That's these are all the things that that go through your mind in a split second as a forward. So if you're in a space and you're stationary, then you're in a space that could be used by another forward. You've got to get out of there. But you don't just get out of there if your defender doesn't come with you, because that's just dumb. Because then you go, that space is still covered by the defender standing there. So all of these, split-second decisions, and so, that's what they have to work on. So if I'm Goody and I'm looking at Melbourne this week, I'm stripping it right back and saying, okay, so who are our dodos? And I say that with all respect. Who are the guys that, just compete, but are not necessarily have a lot of forward nous, forward IQ? Then I'm just going for guys that just know where to be and where not to be at the right time, because it's decision making. But it's also using angles and not making it easy for defenders. And I think that's what they did a lot of the other night. And also, once again, poor kicking, poor decision-making, poor kicking cost them the game.
Yeah, I'm just going to take you to task on something here, and maybe this is the Tasmanian coming out in me, but we have got some feedback about this, a few messages in the last few weeks. I think Victor might have been one of the guys who wrote in about Brody Mihocek. I feel like when we've spoken about footballers past and present, you've often used him as a bit of an example about how the game's gone downhill in the forward department. Jizzy played a role though.
Does the basics very well.
You would, every team would have a Brody Mihocek in their forward line.
Would Brody Mihocek, have he got a game at North Melbourne? in the 90s?
Yeah, it's third forward. Yeah, he would have been.
No, he wouldn't.
He would have been.
Not even close. Would Brody Mihocek got a game in Brisbane's forward line?
No, but they're great teams. They're great teams, Duck. He's
Well,
playing.
no. He's playing in a team that finished on top of the ladder.
Yeah.
The premiership favourites.
They haven't won one yet.
So, but listen to what I'm just saying. We're talking about the number one forward.
Is he playing a role,
What
though?
I'm saying, yes, he is. Would
Yes.
have he got a game?
Yes.
Would he got a game for Essendon? In 2000?
No, he wouldn't have.
Okay, so stop being facetious and listen to what I'm
We'll
saying.
use someone else as your example next time, please. Just maybe avoid Tasmanians. There you go.
Oh, by the way, and I do.
Are you going to say, I love Tassie?
No, I do
Tassie.
love. No, I do love Tassie. Love the produce. I like the way he plays the game. I do.
At least you know what you're going to get.
Correct. Correct. You had me at hello with that.
Yeah.
He's
Well, leave him alone.
He's
Say
very
some
good.
nice things about him.
no. Well, if Brody Mihocek wins a flag for Collingwood, in other words, if they win the flag, they should make a statue of Brody. Make a statue of Brody Mihocek, because I would sit here and say there has not been a premiership team in the history of the game that has had a player like Brody Mihocek be their number one forward.
Well, I'd love to go back through the record
in the
books.
history of the game.
Well, the first team that comes to mind, now I might embarrass myself here, but I'm just trying to remember, West Coast early 2000s, who was playing full forward? Quinton Lynch?
Early 2000s. Who?
Quinton Lynch or Phil Matera?
When they won in
They had Adam Hunter, maybe. He was there.
204 or 205.
Yeah.
No, 06 they won.
Yeah.
They lost 05, won 06. Who was? I can't remember exactly. What I do remember is they had an unbelievable team.
Yeah. They had a very good team.
They probably should have won 2 or 3. But no, they didn't. You're right. I don't think from memory they had a unbelievable.
Yeah, I've got you there. Anyway, we'll move on to the next game. Carlton, I went to this game. You're not happy with that. You want to go on with it. I felt really happy for Patrick Cripps. There felt like seeing him, and you maybe haven't experienced this because you won finals early in your career, but 180 odd games and first final and wins one. It was like a relief, and you could sort of, I don't know. I just looked at him and thought, you deserve that, Paddy, and so well done.
Oh, no question. He's been a super player, much criticised player too amongst Carlton people. I've got some Carlton mates that, a couple of years ago were saying, he's this and that.
He's carried that group for so long.
That's why he has his shoulders strapped. He has. And he had a year where he was carrying an injury and wasn't at his best. But, excuse me, like last year, I had to have something to eat because I had anti-inflammatories. So, he has had unbelievable years and not play footy, and not play finals footy. So, yeah, I agree. You could see how proud he was. And, and without McKay, we didn't mention that, Big Harry, he looks like he's going to miss.
Yes, so they've got their own issues. And no Jack Martin, who's he's small, but he's played as
he's an X-factor player.
Yeah, he's played as that leader.
Big loss.
Player. So what does Carlton do with their forward line?
Big loss.
So they've played without Harry before,
but they had Martin. So yeah, and he was a smart. So they really lose. Look, Harry, I've got to say, well, you know what I said the other week with the multi. You're not going to believe this.
You're
not going to believe this. A mate of mine had him in the multi, and he kicked that ball along the ground and hit the post.
He missed one about 5 minutes later. Isn't it?
Well,
there's a lesson in that.
Terribly out.
There's a lesson in that.
I did say to all those people that sent me tweets saying, "Oh yeah, well he's done this, he's done that." Well, guess what? He's done exactly what I said, that he had to go back to the VFL, get his confidence right up, because he has been nothing short of ordinary in all the games that he's played, right? So he's going to now miss.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a bad thing given the form he's in.
So the choices that Carlton have seem to be recalling Jack Silvagni, who's only played one VFL game in about 6 weeks since injury.
That's a concern. But Jack, the one thing you're going to get from Jack is effort.
Yep. So Tom De Koning, they played De Koning in Pitnet together, but do they play De Koning more forward? We've seen maybe his forward craft needs a bit of work. So
you just want him to you just want him to do what you wanted Harry to do the last few weeks, and that's just compete. I think he has the ability to do that. And given that Jack's missed so much footy, not sure Jack, given that he was on the fringe he's not a player you bring straight back in, I would have thought, given where he was at prior to.
The other one that I saw a few Carlton fans throw around was maybe Mitch McGovern. Could you throw Mitch forward? Or do you think because he's been settled playing good footy down back, you don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul a little bit with him?
Good footy?
Some decent footy.
Okay. He's a failed forward that's now playing back.
So you're shutting that one down. So what are you going with then? Well, you said you don't really want to bring Jack back. So what are you going with? Tom DeCone? You think Tom's going to play more forward?
Yeah. Yeah. But if they do decide to bring Jack back, like I said, the one thing I know on the games I've seen Jack play and the way, well, it's in his DNA, and that is he competes. And that's what they'll get from him. And he'll make sure the ball comes to ground. And so he'll do everything that's asked of him. And plus, remember, he can play a few different roles as well. If they, were to, need to lift somewhere else, he does have that ability. So for me, it's all about once again, no different to Harry, what I said weeks ago. Is he burning the track up? What's his fitness like? So all of these things, how much cross-training has he been able to do? Only they know that. We don't.
So that game is on Friday night, Melbourne against Carlton. Who is going to win that game of footy?
I'll stick with Melbourne. I still think that, I still think they're arguably the best team in it. They haven't shown that. They got beat. Brisbane now look they look really, really strong, didn't they? And we're able to just, go bang, bang, bang and put that game away. But just because of trust factor, you've got to go with Melbourne more than Carlton, don't you? Carlton have won their first final in so many years, and I know they're riding a wave of confidence, but I just think you trust Melbourne more. That's why I'd be going with Melbourne.
The other game on the weekend, you touched on Brisbane. The other game was StKilda and GWS. The Saints...
Not going into a highlights package, that one.
No, I noticed actually it was the lowest rating final, I think, since it'd been recording.
Oh, really?
There was no one watched it. I actually went to that game. GWS were impressive, but St Kilda I am worried about for a few reasons. And I know you've been big on Ross and the impact he's had and great effort getting to a final. But the knock on the Saints a few years ago was their best is only going to get them to a certain level. And their best this year got them to an elimination final. Have they got enough improvement in them to contend? I'm worried they're going to be middle of the road. Where do you see them?
Well, they've got to do a lot of good work in the off season. They've got to pick up. Not sure what exact draft picks that they've got, but they've got to make them count. They've got to get hopefully a couple of free agents through the door, but they've got to build their list. They've overachieved, right? So Ross been in the 8 the whole year, finished 6th, lose their final. No great surprise that they lost on the weekend. I thought they were a chance, but GWS are in pretty good form. I think they've done an amazing job. Could they miss the finals next year? Yeah, they could. Could they make the finals next year with a couple of good decisions? Yeah, they could. I think one of those teams that could finish from 6th to 15th next year. And that's not, I don't think I'm being Nostradamus by saying that. I just think that's where they're at. Ross to be able to get them up and let them believe them in themselves enough to do what they did this year has been a remarkable effort.
Max King is a guy we've spoken about a few times and for a few different reasons. One, because he's a forward and you take close look at the forwards. Also because he's had his shoulder issue. I wonder with Max how much that's affected him late in the year. I watched him closely in that game and just felt at times they were crying out for his presence and he was maybe more worried about his opponent or the contact he was getting.
Better players around him. He's not anywhere near 100% fit. Yeah. He's done a remarkable job to come back and kick goals and contribute to help them play finals footy this year. But there's no possible way he could have been 100% fit, right? So he'll now have that shoulder reconstructed again. And he should be right he will be right by the start of next year. But let's not forget what that guy's had. So he's had a reconstruction. He's come back. He's done it again and then tried to strengthen it up in a matter of a few weeks and then play. So he's done all of that for the benefit of his team and the footy club as a whole. So I think he should be applauded for what he's been able to achieve. So don't look at the last game and just understand that he'd be in some pain as well.
Was heading along to that game. We don't often delve into the world of politics in this podcast. We often keep sport and politics a little bit separate. But walking to that game, I noticed it for the first time, and it's hard to avoid at the moment, is the discussion around The Voice. And for the first time walking in, there were people with...
John Farnham.
No, not John Farnham, although John's lent his song to the Voice campaign.
I know what you're talking about.
There were people handing out brochures for the Yes campaign. Now, although some of our listeners probably, hear a lot of the time, want to just focus on sport or that sort of thing, but all of our listeners, like you and I, will have to vote at some stage. So have you given it much thought?
It's like anything. It's, religion, politics, all of the I guess things that are divisive to people because of which way they go, and everyone has an opinion on it. The one thing I've always said, and I always say to my children, because they've asked, oh, Dad, are we religious? Or whether I am or I'm not. The one thing that I don't do is I don't force my beliefs onto even my children. So, and that includes the footy team that they barrack for, believe it or not. They make their own decision up who they barrack for. I don't say you're going to barrack for North Melbourne because that's who Dad played for. So when it comes to this, and it is a big topic at the minute, and how long till we that big? I don't even know when we vote. But I
think we've got a bit of time still till the referendum.
I'll be voting yes. Okay, simple as that. Is there any great reason behind me voting yes? I just think it's the right thing to do. I think it's time, I think it's time. What does it do? I'm not overly well read. I haven't read the whole thing, but I have an understanding of it. Is it a little bit of a token? Yes, in terms of not my vote, yes, but
the whole Voice itself.
The whole Voice
so the
itself.
Voice for an advisory body. Yeah, I guess that's been the argument, hasn't it?
Yeah, and then that's the argument around it all. But even if it is tokenism, a little bit of that, I'll still vote yes.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm not saying that so our listeners or I won't be telling anyone else in my circle of friends what to vote. And if they say they're voting no, I'm not going to say, oh, why are you voting no? You know what? You vote for what you think, and don't force your opinion onto others.
I guess that's why it has become divisive. I see now that the yes vote is about 40 and maybe it's 60% no. And so, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. The AFL.
What are you voting?
I'll be voting yes. I don't think it's going to have a huge impact.
I reckon you're just copying me.
I don't think it'll have a huge impact on my life. So I feel like if it's going to be a positive for some other people, then why not?
Yeah.
Did you like that little offshoot into?
And didn't know that
put you on the spot.
That's all right.
Well, I just like seeing your initial thoughts.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Well, you know what? When it comes to politics, probably my thoughts aren't that important.
Yeah, I couldn't see you sitting down watching every question time.
I actually just recently got a fine for the last.
Oh, you didn't vote?
Well, it wasn't my fault. I was actually doing a charity walk for 24 hours, and I lined up to vote, and the line took too long.
That's where you get your sausage.
Before people be smart alecks about this, but I don't do lines. I don't line up. Okay. If the line
so
up,
because they didn't invite you to the front.
If the lineup is any longer than probably 2
meters,
no,
people,
2 people.
Oh yeah,
I'm giving it a miss, and that includes the Eiffel Tower, that includes the Mona Lisa.
Well,
that includes anything.
Well, that's an issue for you overseas because you can't walk up and go.
It still has value.
No, it doesn't. Mate.
You know what has value over there, right? With 100 in your hand.
You know what you do now? You get the postal vote out now. That's the easy.
Yeah, I know, and that's what I should have done. But anyway, that's why I didn't get it done, and I've got the fine, so I've got to pay the fine.
Did you watch the UFC yesterday?
I told you what I was doing yesterday. I went to the footy.
So would you normally watch it?
If it's a good card.
So I noticed it was in Melbourne this time.
Yeah, if it's a really good card, I'll watch it.
I remember when it was last in Melbourne when Ronda Rousey, that was huge at that time when she was here, and then she lost. Another big upset yesterday. It'd be The thing I think about UFC when I look at it is, imagine the mindset of jumping in that cage. It is really.
Well, given that you're too scared to say to your neighbour that they've got a barking dog, I would have thought that you'd be a little bit scared to jump in the cage. Yeah, and you know what's great about the UFC and the difference between the UFC and boxing right now is that the belts are unified. That's why I love it. That's why I think people relate to it more so than boxing at the minute.
Yep. So there's an undisputed
champ in every weight division, and that's how it should be.
When we look around the world of sport, there are some other things that caught my eye that I was going to ask you about as a sports person. Coco Gauff, so 19-year-old US tennis player, she burst onto the scene when she was 15 or something like that.
A lot of them burst on when they're younger. It is a young person's sport.
Yeah, particularly on the women's side. So she had big raps, but maybe hadn't had the success some were hoping for. But even though she's only 19, and
a bit harsh.
But that was her. Who's ringing you there, mate?
Dingbat.
Dingbat. She maybe hadn't had the success some were expecting. Then more recently, she's started winning a little bit, and she won the US Open. She post game said, basically, thank you to all the haters for doubting me. That's given me great motivation. How much of that is part of your motivation? So I would have thought it would be more internal rather than external.
Well, that is internal when you think about it. So it's external. She's taking the external, making it internal. Yeah.
Yep.
So and if you need to do that to get yourself up, then, you know, why not? And a lot of people have, I think, had successful careers or successful moments because of doubters. But that's what they do. They have this great ability to think that they're the underdog. You know, they're you know, it's us against the world. And, you know, every now and then, obviously team sport's a little bit different to individual sports. And I'm not sure whether she's got a coach, but her coach might be driving that and saying, you know, no one thinks you can win, you know, and every now and then, you know, your coach can, I think, give that to the whole team, but it can't be overused. You have to have self-motivation, and how you get that is any way you want and any way that helps you. And whether that's, you know, hanging up a picture of, you know, I don't know if you're the Karate Kid and you're hanging up a picture of whoever you know, got to fight. What was his name?
What, Mr. Miyagi?
No, that was his trainer. But
whoever he's got to fight.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah. But putting them up on the like you know, Rocky putting Drago up on the you know, when he was training, he's had the picture of Drago. So, you know, whatever helps you motivate, then use it.
When you look at your again, Coco Gauff she's playing individual sport, as you alluded to, versus team sports. But you would look around your change room probably at North Melbourne, and people would have different reasons for playing, different reasons, different motivations, and some would have stronger motivations than others. How aware of that are you as a leader and as a teammate?
Oh, when you play a team sport, you're aware of those players that need a lift, and you need to get over and have a chat to that might be quite insular and be having self-doubt and all of those things. So they're the times that and that is understanding. That is the thing and that's the great thing about team sport. That's the difference. You know, you get those relationships, you get that feeling of when someone needs to be picked up, and sometimes when someone needs to be cut down as well, because you can see them walking around the room thinking, you know, their poo doesn't smell, and they're about to come up on a really good player, and, you know, you can just see the cockiness or whatever. So you need to go over and just.
Would anyone have ever done that to you?
Probably should have.
Who were the senior guys at North Melbourne that you might have been, when you first came onto the scene, that you might have been not intimidated by, but maybe respected?
No, I listened to everyone, especially Dennis.
Yeah.
Dennis pulled me. Dennis would come over if he thought I was getting ahead of myself and pull me up during the week if he thought that was the case, and generally got the right result. So he knew the right buttons to push.
After that match was Arena Sabalenka, Coco Gauff's opponent, who it's a bit of vision that came out this morning, and you don't often see it. You're more set during the game, but she took her bag and she had her trophy. She was in the change rooms after the game. It was in the warm up area, so they still had the cameras on her. She took a racket out of her bag, smashed it, and then put it in the rubbish bin.
So she would have been aware that the cameras are in.
I'd say she probably did. I just thought it was unusual that happened post game, but that was obviously her frustration, and she held on to it and then disposed of it after the game. Have you
Racket's fault?
Yeah, exactly. Have you seen much of that?
I reckon you'd be a bloke that'd blame your tools more so than your ability.
Yeah, I'd be a racket smasher. I reckon.
Hey?
I'd get pretty frustrated.
Or if you I don't know, you can't put something together, you blame the instructions or the screwdriver's not straight or the hammer's.
I could do that.
A nail.
Just speaking of tennis, I remember playing a game against a mate down at Devonport Tennis Club in Tassie, and the they have the local pro.
There's a lot of competition there.
No, it wasn't competition, but the local pro was just sitting in the club rooms just watching us play. We didn't realise he was here, but we came off, and he said that was the worst game of tennis I've ever watched.
He sat there and watched it.
Yeah, so it was obviously not a particularly high standard, but
and obviously terribly bored.
Yeah, well, when you sit,
well, why would he sit there and watch?
Because he's got to sit there, and he's letting people into the tennis club. You see, he's got nothing else to do down there.
So he's a security, not.
It was a ding dong battle. It just wasn't
security, not a.
It wasn't security. No. Anyway, back to the original question. You ever seen any post game tantrums? It's probably more. You'd see more in cricket maybe than footy. Would you see any tantrums in footy?
They do it. Oh, I've seen. Oh, well, guys have come off and kick the bench and even refuse to take the phone to the coach and that sort of. But from memory, I think Peter Bell ran home from the MCG one day after not playing like he thought he should, and so jogged home 10, 15 Ks or something it was.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, not the way I would have gone. I just you play a bad game, you go out, do it responsibly, obviously, but you go out, you have a couple of beers with your mates, they lift you up, and you move on very quickly. And then same on the flip side, you play well, you go out with your mates, they knock you down, and you move on very quickly. That was my theory.
Still on the world of sport, Novak Djokovic won the men's US Open, his 24th Grand Slam, so he's well clear in the men. He's Margaret Court won 24 in a different era for the women. It's reignited the discussion around greatest of all time. We chatted in a tennis sense earlier this year when we compared him to Roger and Rafa and all of these guys. Now I've seen the discussion around whether he's in the conversation for all sports, and I know it's even harder to compare all sports, but it's an interesting one in terms of what you value in different sports and how you compare different sports. Who in team sport versus individual. I see a lot of US lists are very that they go towards baseball and American football, but who is in the conversation? Yeah, US bias. So who is in the conversation? Is Novak up there?
I said when we had the previous conversation earlier, I listened to a guy by the name of Bruce McAvaney that has watched all. I think he said to me that he thinks Novak will end up being the greatest of all time. You can't compare eras though. Like you go back.
So take it out of tennis. I'm talking all sports now.
Yeah, all sports.
Is he up there with MJ? Or?
Michael Phelps has got to be in the argument as one of the greatest athletes of all time. What he's done in swimming. Michael Jordan, team sport. Muhammad Ali, boxing.
Yep. Usain Bolt's done it
Usain, 100%. He's got to be in the argument. So when it comes to team, you are relying on your teammates, even though Michael, made his teammates better. I think when you're if you're talking about the greatest athlete, it's got to be more the individual sport. That's just
interesting.
That's once again just an opinion.
And I guess it's also how many people play that sport, because when you see the US lists and their American football, so hardly anyone plays that. When you look at someone like say a Messi or a Maradona or a Cristiano Ronaldo, that soccer is played the world over.
And that is so true. But that's and in all team sports, and that's why I think in team sport there's always going to be an argument for one person over another. And there's always going to be conjecture and grey. So Jordan, or King James, or you've got Messi or Ronaldo or Maradona. So, the same names generally get thrown up. Often championships dictate what, for instance, Tom Brady, you talk to people that follow NFL, they say there were more more talented quarterbacks than Tom Brady, but he won, more championships. So, that people put a lot of weight in that rather than say, well, he wasn't as good a quarterback. So, you're always going to get an argument.
The other name that I've found interesting at times in this discussion, I saw Piers Morgan, I think it might have been, who's not often you're biased towards people from your own country, but he's British, and he suggested Sir Donald Bradman because his record compared to everybody else is just so much better.
Well, that's not exactly light bulb moment, is it?
I guess I think
everyone's acknowledged.
But a lot of people in the US
played with a toothpick.
A lot of people in the US or wherever wouldn't know who he is. So I guess that's
batted with a toothpick, and had that sort of record. Just defies logic. Yeah, so clearly he's the best just because of.
Well, I want to throw that.
No, it is a different.
I want to throw that question open to our listeners and get some feedback, and maybe we'll share that on our next show. We normally spend quite a lot of time on our listener questions, but we've got
so many.
We've got so many that we're going to break it off into a separate episode and keep them coming in because we love the questions and they are growing.
And we did get, I did have a few people come up to me over the weekend and not talk about the exquisite package, but talk about the fact that we didn't really give tips last week. And so I want to give some tips this week. I think Melbourne will beat Carlton, and I think Port Adelaide defeat GWS.
Oh, thanks you've gone for the two favourites. Thanks, mate. I appreciate that.
Oh, well, okay, but they just wanted a tip. That's just my thing. So that matters. So it'll be Melbourne. Melbourne will be playing Brisbane, and Port Adelaide will be playing Collingwood. And I have got on first hand that Port Adelaide will get to wear their traditional Guernsey if they. No, mate, look at your eye.
What are you saying?
Yeah, no. So they're my tips for the weekend. So I think it's going to be, like I said, a big prelim. So it still could be. Well, it could be Brisbane, Collingwood. But imagine if it was Brisbane, Port Adelaide. If it went that way, and then.
Yeah, I wouldn't love that. I'd find that a bit. Can it be Carlton? It can be Carlton, Collingwood, can't it? Because Carlton's on the other side to the Pies.
Correct. So Carlton will go out and play Brisbane.
Yeah, that'd be. I mean, imagine that. That'd be monstrous in Melbourne.
Oh, yeah. Well, anyway, that's a long way away.
I was looking at the crowds for 90,000, thinking how good's this? You obviously played in front of big crowds at North Melbourne. Collingwood would play in front of it every week. Does it make a difference coming up against that sort of crowd?
I would have to. And that's why I think Carlton spoke about it all week. And it was whoever, I assume, Vossi not just assume, they've played, since they've got on that run, they've turned out the Blues supporters. So they do play in front of big crowds. So therefore, it doesn't mean or make that big a difference whether it's a final. In saying that, it's knockout. And it's been knockout for them last week. But it's almost been knockout for Carlton, to be honest with you, for about 10 weeks.
Yep. So
they've stood up. They've stood up. So it's going to be a fascinating game, that one.
Ever since you wrote them off.
Wrote them off, but did say that they'd make it.
Well, thanks again for listening on The True Thirds. We'll be back again next week, but also keep an ear out for our secondary episode, which will have all your questions and the answers from the man alongside me, the Duck.
You can either take the red pill, you'll wake up, everything was a dream, or you can take the black pill, you can get torched.
Well, I suppose getting torched won't hurt that much. I don't feel anything.
Wait for it.
Oh, wait. I just got a new client.
Get torched! Get torched! Get torched!